artists are called independent contractors.
Yeah.
You think artists like that? No, they don't. Well, the thing is, with an artist, because the jobs are not sustainable, so...
Hi guys, welcome to Mamolao. Here we are again standing on legal business. Today we're going to talk entertainment law, the entertainment industry. It's where it's at, guys. I've invited an esteemed guest, and before I introduce her, allow me to give you her very sprawling bio. She has an LLB degree. She has a marketing and research certificate. And she has a speech and drama diploma from Oxford School of Drama. She has work experience as an advocate of the High Court on general and different legal matters, including the road accident, civil litigation, family law, medical negligence, criminal law, labor and intellectual and copyright law. She was also in the commission of Bapo Bamogale, claiming for the legitimate rule based on lineage or divine right as a junior advocate. She has a representation in the disciplinary hearings of misconduct of employees, and she was a panel member in the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. She's also an author. She also has experience managing a variety of artists. Currently, she is on the board of the William Humphreys National Art Gallery Council, and she was a chairperson she's the chairperson of the Consultative Committee of National Liberation Heritage Institute of South Africa. I want to talk about her awards and recognitions, guys. This is definitely worth a while. She's the recipient of the National Order of Ikamanga in silver for excellent contribution to the performing arts and literature. She has been a consistent advocate for equity and justice in the arts. In recognition of promoting indigenous languages, Sepedi, by Balekwebepe Arts Festival, Limpopo. She's also an official ambassador for the Read to Lead campaign initiated by the former Minister of Basic Education. And lastly, she is the Vita Basadi Award from Gauteng Province in reception of contribution to our democracy and women emancipation. I'm talking about none other than the Advocate Nakedi Ribane. Yes, Advocate Nakedi Ribane, aka Sintao Lele. Hello, Advocate.
Mamolao.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I mean, the way you just put me there on the pedestal.
We actually have to give you a flowers while you're still around, my dear. Welcome so much to Mamolao.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. I really do appreciate it. And I will say, guys, I am starstruck. I grew up on television watching this lady, and I'm sure as some of you have as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such an honor. It's a privilege and an honor, Mamolao.
So I want to get straight into the questions, Advocate, because I think it's quite important that entertainers also have the relevant information that they need in order to be able for their careers to thrive. I think often enough, if you don't have the right level of information, you can't actually be able to protect your intellectual property, your rights as a creative. And I think it's important that we have the discussion, especially as somebody who's been in the industry for as long as you have been. I'm going to get straight into the questions. And the first one is, what key habits or practices have contributed to your longevity in the entertainment industry?
I think for myself and for most people would be just really commitment and passion. If you're committed to something, it doesn't matter how it goes. I think what you do is every time you just want to try and make it better and get in there and also try and find out, like you were saying, I should be to maybe the up and coming other creatives. You try and learn from the best too. You ask them, how do you do this? And And for your own, also you try and equip yourself with what you think works better for you. So I suppose, that's what keeps people going.
That's good. I think it's important for us to, even as career people, we need to actually own our own careers and run it in the manner in which we would feel it will create or provide the right longevity for ourselves. I guess each individual is different based on how they want to present themselves as a creative. How far does talent then take you, and how far does hard work take you? Can one be a jack of all trades? Can one be talented in various areas of entertainment, singing, acting, presenting? Can one be it all in the industry?
Sure, Mamolao, you asked me so many questions. How far does talent take you, or
hard work?
Hard work. If you have both, you are really blessed, in the sense that some people are talented and they think that talent only can take them far. But then if you are talented, at the same time you work hard, like you put in hours, you try and be a perfectionist in whatever you're doing, it really takes you far. Because when I read about Beyonce and people like that, I think she's talented, but at the same time, I think she works hard, because I've seen somewhere where Jay-Z says that he's a hustler, and she's a hustler too. So you have to know that you want to hustle. Some people, you are talented, and a lot of people, actually, it's a very good question that you asked, in the sense that some people have been talented, highly talented before, and then all of a sudden they see other people bypassing them, and they don't understand. They think, how smamang, I'm better than this person in every other way, and how come this person now has just bypassed me and they're successful? Remember that there are other people also who can be better than you because they work harder. So if you combine both, all the much better, because hard work can really take you far. You keep on thinking, in anything, you might be a model and you think, I'm not as beautiful as this other person, or I don't have the looks that this person get, but I will do what it takes. If people want you, you come on time. If people want you, you are reliable, you are dependable, and all those things, they add up to who you are. And you asked also about if you can be a jack of all trades. You can be, in the sense that a lot of artists, if you have watched and if you have noticed, actually they sing, they dance, they act, they present. So I think because being a performing artist, especially a performing artist, if you are not a visual artist, most performing artists, actually, these things are intertwined. In the sense that when you do one, you can do the other. Not, well, I can't sing to save my life. Those kind of things. So the things that you think you can do, and, you combine them. And, you get surprised. Somebody sings and they act, and, it's so beautiful. And others dance as well. So, but then the ones that you can't do, you just, you can shelve them aside, but you don't concentrate on them. That's true. Back to your question. Yes, you can be a jack of all trades.
That's amazing. That's amazing, because sometimes I think we take for granted what it takes to be a talented creative, because we just see the finished product and we think, oh, that looks so amazing. But, the work that comes in the back of that, before it actually gets presented to us, is actually a whole lot of hard work. Speaking of hard work, tell us about, creative burnouts. Can creatives burn out over the years? And what does that look like? How does one navigate those kind of challenges in the industry with so much competition in the industry?
Yeah. You're asking very good questions. Yes, there can be a lot of burnout. Because if you've noticed as well, if you follow certain artists, there's certain things that they might have done before that they like very much, and they harp on them. Because it's the best thing that they can do. And then when they try and go outside that, you might find that it's not the same as what they did before. And some people are very lucky, they keep on, they can change, they
Evolve.
write, and just evolve. And they have lots of ideas. I mean, like my favorite writer, Zakes Mda. He writes and writes, and
he gets
on,
better
and better. Not everybody can be like that. So a lot of people there's a lot of creative burnout. And when that happens, I think some people take a sabbatical.
Okay.
Some people step back and think, I won't do this, but let me rethink, or let me find myself again, find my mojo, so to say. And after I've done that, maybe I can come back and do things differently.
Lovely.
Yeah. So I think when people haven't seen somebody for a long time, they think, oh, we're young, but then you can come back and do better. But then some people just want to take. I think that's when maybe you're talking about jack of all trades. Want to do everything and anything, and sometimes it doesn't work for everyone.
You need to be strategic about being a jack of
all
which
trades. Yes,
you want to be.
That's correct.
Lovely. So I just want to ask you around the what advice can you give to up and coming creatives, even creatives that are already in the industry? I mean, you've been there for a while, you've seen a lot of things, you've evolved in the industry. What top 5 pieces of advice can you give to aspiring entertainers when it comes to building lasting connections in the industry, just for them to have that staying power?
I think to be yourself, in the sense that sometimes, unfortunately, when people stand their ground and they're themselves, they don't necessarily get booked.
Yeah.
And so if you work with producers and you work with people and you think what they're giving you is not what you like, or it can vary about a lot of things. It can be the script, it can be the money, what you're earning there. It can be the conditions of employment. I mean, within the on set. I mean, if either on set, or if you're a musician or any other creative, where you feel you're not being treated the way you ought to be. And some people, they don't take kindly to it. I don't.
Really?
No, I don't. But some people can just stomach anything and everything, and you'd be shocked, because sometimes those are the people you see all the time, and they seem like they are the superstars, and not necessarily because they get booked because they are like yabas for everything, and which impacts on other people, unfortunately. So, but if you do all those things, if you are dependable, you respect your craft, and you try and understand and bring in yourself and bring something better too.
Yeah.
When you are there and say, oh, certain things we can do them differently this way and they, you're loved. But unfortunately, some people really get loved just because they like yes for everything. But you stand your ground, and the most important thing also, to try and read your contracts.
Yeah.
So, because when you read your contract and and go through all the clauses and stuff like that, also you stand a better chance. But do you know that there are some producers who actually don't like that?
Really?
It's like wena utsibinki. The tsibinkis.
Yeah.
When you know your rights,
yeah,
and you know who you are, sometimes you don't, especially in this country, sometimes you don't go.
You don't get booked. But reading is important. I mean,
Yes.
in some of my other segments, I talk about reading one's
Yes.
contract.
True.
Thou shalt not sign if you don't know what you're signing to.
That is correct. But it is correct, and yet some people, when they refuse to sign what they don't believe in, and then they don't get booked.
And the difficulty about that is, what's the point of signing a contract that you will not be able to stick to. You will not be able to, actualize, because now if you're signing a contract that you don't agree to and then you breach that contract, now you're at fault again, right? So those are the kind of balances that we actually need to have in general.
Let me tell you something that might encompass some of the things maybe I think you as Mamolao, you might want to talk about. There was a Felicia Mabuza's show many years ago when some of us were still young and, really kind of with the Mamolao.
Yes.
And it's funny because my daughter was looking at it and says, oh, everybody looks so young here. There's there's everybody, who had been there during some had even passed on. May their souls rest in peace. Bo Mamolao Machene, Connie Chume, Patrick Shai, and the list goes on. Yeah. But then all of us are in the studio, so it's been doing rounds. It's trending of now, and in it we're talking about collective bargaining.
Oh, yes.
So when there's about collective bargaining, Felicia was asking about collective bargaining and asking all the questions that she was asking in there and asking people, do you think you're good enough? If you are not, one Connie said there quickly and saying, Felicia, if I wasn't good enough, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am at the,
Yes.
And then, the producer, one of the producers, was talking about Patrick Shai and Patrick Shai being a lesser known actor, maybe like your Denzel Washington, whatever, which is true. There's no really comparison between us as artists in South Africa and the ones in the USA. And yet, you ask yourself, so Mamolao was saying, if you go to the theater in the UK, you'll see my pictures in there. And yet you're saying I'm not well known. And Patrick was saying also, the kind of remuneration that we are getting, you won't give to me as a producer. And yet you would pay that for somebody to drive a Denzel Washington on set and stuff like that. So how you get treated, how you get remunerated, and those things, they talk a lot about what is it people can do and what they shouldn't be doing. And you ask yourself, if you sign a contract and you can be treated properly, where you are well remunerated, you're well, you're respected, you feel, oh, I've arrived, I'm on set. You feel good. The only time you feel like that is when you're doing a feature film, like an international feature film.
Right. Then you get treated with that level of professionalism that comes with you, the brand.
Where there's a caravan, it's got your name on it. You have your own staff looking, after you properly, and your own driver, makeup artist and stuff like that. Here, it's
different. It's difficult.
It's difficult. I mean, you find that sometimes you don't even have proper dressing rooms. You have to make do with some toilet nyana somewhere or just a screen. And some people, even now on set, are complaining, saying, once I went on set and all of a sudden the space that I'm supposed to, I'm just even calling it space, not even your own dressing room. The space that you use, there you find somebody who's an extra on set having to change in the same room as you.
Oh gosh. And so
how do you feel?
I think then that goes into, the basic conditions of employment.
Yes.
Right? Because even though you are a creative, and a lot of the time creatives are independent contractors, so to speak, because they can do various multiple roles.
Well, that's something something that creatives don't like.
Yeah.
We can talk a little bit about that.
And I want us to go into that because it's important that creatives understand the type of contract that they are going into. And that's why reading a contract is important. That's why understanding the type of contract you're going into is also important. You've just talked about challenges around contracts, that are difficult or onerous for particular people. And if you refuse to sign, then you're not going to get to the next job, or you're not going to get to this job that you're looking for. You've talked about challenges around just basic conditions of employment, right? Just having the little space required for you to be able to change, for you to be able to do what you need to do. And I think let's go into those, because this is why we do Mamolao, because I think it's important that we highlight the plight of the challenges that exist in the entertainment industry, right?
Correct. And so the reason I was talking about that clip that's still trending from Felicia Mabuza's time,
yes,
it's because the same problems that happened then are still ongoing.
They still exist.
And then, now I remember, then Silo Makeka Ngcobe complained and said, people tell me about the budget, and they tell me I can't be paid properly because the budget isn't enough. He says, how much is the budget? You never know. And then at the end, I was saying to Felicia, whenever I talk to my agent, the agent tells me that I don't know the size of your pocket. So if you don't want to take this job, it means, I don't know this. How do you say that to a person? Do you say to a doctor, or do you say to anyone that I don't know the size of your pocket? So if I give you 50 rand when you're supposed to be getting 1,500 rand, and then you refuse it, so you understand what I mean?
And I think for me, that's quite important. Remuneration is so important because you're right. As attorneys, we don't want to compromise when it comes to our fees. Doctors, they're not going to operate you. You're not going into the operating table if you haven't paid what you paid your dues. And so, but now, why must the entertainment industry be different? Why must people compromise on the authenticity of their craft? And you've just said to us in your advice to creatives that they must respect their craft.
Yes.
But it's reciprocal, isn't it?
It is.
It is reciprocal.
It is.
Tit for tat. If I must respect my craft, I must come on time, must be reliable, dependable, and you also then need to reciprocate and pay me to be
I must know my
that.
lines. It doesn't matter whether it's 20 pages or something like that.
Exactly.
I have to bring in myself and, my craft. So I have to be respected for that.
Yeah.
Very rarely that it gets respected in this country, in the sense that you have producers, they would say to you, oh, unfortunately, I cannot pay you what you want because I can only pay you so much. And then they're lying. How many times have you seen after a production, producers driving these huge 4x4s, and then all of a sudden they tell you he's got a plot somewhere, he's got, and I mean, yes, you might not be getting what the producer is getting, but as Silo asked then, says, how would I know what, if I don't know what the budget is, and, somebody says, look, in law, us, when we work, in a way, I have to be remunerated by yourself as an attorney and as an advocate. But then at the same time, all these things, everybody, like you're saying, nobody wants to be, you don't want to compromise. I wouldn't want to compromise. The only time you compromise is when you do pro bono.
Yeah.
But you do pro bono because you want to.
Correct.
And I always say charity begins at home. You do pro bono because you want to help your people and you want to be of service to the public and to the community. But at the same time, when you're not getting properly remunerated somewhere else, you're not even able to do that pro bono itself. Itself.
That's true.
Now, artists, tell me, how many times do artists actually do charity work? When people are doing functions, there's venue, they would say, oh, we don't have money, unfortunately, but if we had, we would pay. They go to charitable, artists are philanthropists.
They are.
They are always working. They go and do functions where they don't get paid properly or what they deserve. And then at the expense of always being told, oh, it's for your own exposure.
So you have exposure. You know what I don't like about that?
That exposure thing is
what I don't like, Advocate, is that, you know, so often we read newspapers and we listen to the news, and people are making Mickey out of the, you know how they say artists die poor.
And almost getting a pauper's funeral.
That really breaks my heart, because what you've just explained to us then speaks to why then artists die poor.
Yes.
Is because throughout their careers, then they are also not getting the recognition that is required financially. Right, so people want to now give them, when they go and do their talks and they go and do an appearances, now they want to be remunerated in kind. They are not being remunerated accordingly. And then we still want to not understand why artists then die poor.
Let's go back to that
my heart.
Contractor. Now the legal, back to us to our legal sort of discussion. Contractor versus an employee.
Correct.
Now, artists are called independent contractors.
Yeah.
You think artists like that? No, they don't. Well, the thing is, with an artist, because the jobs are not sustainable, so sometimes you are lucky enough to break it big. And then when you do, then you're able to do certain things like go buy pay for a house cash or big cars or stuff like that. And people say when artists have money, they show off. They don't necessarily show off because at that time they manage to get, let's say they get a nice international job, be it it's a gig or it's a performing artist as a in theater or on TV or whatever. But because it's not sustainable, that kind of money, you are unlikely to get it in the next month or 3 other months consistently. Now, at that time, you go and do what you have wanted to do. So they say, Limobon, she got that money and showed off. They're not showing off, but it's the time that you can use something. You can go buy your TV screens, you can buy whatever you do. Now, do people even know that artists don't get an unemployment fund? They don't get medical aid,
retirement, annuity.
No, all these things that people get for granted. You know, when you are an employee, these things are taken for granted. You get them, and then you can, if you get retrenched, you can go to UIF offices, and then go claim your money for what you work for. Artists don't do that.
They don't have that.
Well, I mean, as lawyers, we don't as well. But, it's different in the sense that the amount of work that come for legal practitioners, it's not necessarily the same as artists, But that's what happens.
The penny is dropping right now. The penny is dropping around, why we make certain perceptions. It's
about
because,
artists.
Yes, it's because of what we read. It's because the information that is given to us. But we hardly ever hear the voice behind the performer. We hardly ever hear the challenges of the performer. I mean, the penny just dropped now for me around, an artist buying a house. Sometimes then it does get portrayed as, ooh, making so much money.
Yes, and at that time, you were lucky. You got that big break, and then after that, how are you going to maintain that house? You have to be able to have that kind of remuneration consistently,
to maintain
what you're having.
And
guys, when you don't, that's when people are looking at artists and saying, oh, they show off, and then they're going to be getting paupers' funerals. I mean,
and they also deserve to live like the rest of us. They deserve to afford a home. They deserve to afford the basics.
You don't even get proper loans at the banks because the bank look and they say, let's see your monthly salary.
You're not an employee.
You are an independent
contractor. So you don't have a consistent income going into your bank account. So it becomes a challenge to try and get something as basic as a loan to participate in the financial economy of this country.
And when you are an independent contractor, you should be the one saying, I want to do this now, I won't do that. Unlike, a proper contractor is the one who says, oh no, I'm not going to do this, I'll do that. Yes, it sounds like that for artists to be able to want to do that. And then there are times, yes, you can be in demand. I mean, sometimes people are in demand and you wanted this. If you are constantly in demand and you're working consistently, all the much better for you. But how many artists can say that?
Very few, very few. How do we then, I want us to go into formalizing now, the rights of creatives. How do we try to match it as much as possible to how other industries around the world are doing it better than us? How then do we mirror that? Creatives don't have unions, for example, to speak on their behalf, to highlight the challenges. How do we then, get to a point where creatives and producers and filmmakers and so on can then agree on the basics? These are the basic conditions of employment. These are the basic conditions of you coming onto set and doing what you need to do. How do we formalize that?
Interesting. We had a union. I was the national organizer. It was called POWER. That's many years ago. It was called Performing Arts Workers Equity.
Okay.
Based on the equity that's in the UK. And then we got together as artists, black, white. It was it was the only time where you had lots of white people in the union. And it's interesting how it actually started, because some of us were skeptical. We didn't even want to get into it because before POWER, there was a union for theaters.
Yeah.
Mamolao was in it and tried to, because we got together, out of all of this, saying we are sick and tired, we want to be treated with respect, we want to be remunerated properly, and then kept on wanting to try to lure us. We said, no, why should we come and join you guys? Because we are a bigger number.
Yeah.
Eventually we managed to, cut to the chase. We matched, we were POWER. It had a lot of white artists in it. But white people in this country, even if they are listening to me, I'll take them back there so that they understand. So the reason there was more, we used to complain about things like when we have international films, that internationally, they shouldn't bring more people to play leads than we have in South Africa.
Correct.
But we allowed them like 4 leads. 4 leads is quite a lot, in the sense that you can watch a movie with having only 2 leads. But because we were as one unit together, we all understood the intricacies of the industry, and everybody pulled together. And also we managed to get even exemption from SARS.
Really?
At that time, I think we were paying only like 1% or whatever. SARS now, it's not interested. And
so what happened to POWER? How
it just got
dissipated
because also at that time, another thing is we wanted 60% of crew members to be South Africans. Internationally, they used to bring their own people. Now, white people liked this one. You know why? Who was crew? They were crew then. At that time, we didn't have sound, grip, whatever, most crew members, and they supported us. And then everything started dissipating.
Sure.
And then, but now you have a guild. The guild, is also like a culmination of artists getting together and talking about the problems that they have and how best to do it, and exactly how you put it when you introduce, to mirror what happens overseas.
Correct.
And not necessarily, because people hate the word union.
Yeah.
As soon as they hear people are unionized, they turn you into as if it's an ugly thing. It's not. Once it's people get together and they demand and then we were able as collectively, as a union, to even negotiate with SABC then, because we wanted royalties.
Yes.
And we got repeat fees, but now they don't even pay for all the dramas that they're repeating.
Sure.
They repeat and repeat them. And that's where intellectual property comes in.
Yeah.
And how artists are demanding for their right to their creative work, because you know that as a creative, if you do anything, you have a right to that property, that intellectual property, at least even if it's for 50 years or for the time that you're still alive. And after that, you know, people can reproduce your work the way they do. Hence, everybody's doing Shakespeare and, you know, all other works. But it's important to secure that intellectual property right at the beginning.
Right.
And after that, also, to be able to, so when you secure that intellectual property as your own copyright, then people can't just dabble on it. Then it's only when you can take them to court and
challenge.
So now, a whole lot of things is happening around fair, what do you call it?
Fair use.
Fair use, where students can use, you know, your work and stuff like that. There isn't anything wrong with that, but when you do that, a person cannot copy a substantial amount of your work.
All right, one more question that I have is around Bophelo ke Semphego. Most of us have grown up watching you on Bophelo ke Semphego. And, you know, what other works have you done? I'm sure there's other works that you've done around Bophelo ke Semphego. And if they were to bring it back now and replay it, where would it be? Where would Nkosheng be? Where would Matiti be? And Sentaulelo, of course. Where would you guys be?
No, it's true. I've done other works, but then for some reason, the one that sticks is Sentaulelo. People love Sentaulelo.
We love her.
I love Sentaulelo too. I just love her. And I love her the same way as everybody loves Sentaulelo. It's interesting because not long we were at the Kruger National Park, and we were hosted by the Kruger National Park as myself and Madeti and Nkusheng.
Really?
Yes. And Nkusheng was supposed to come. She hasn't been feeling well.
Okay.
And the creator of Bophelo ke Semphego, the director and the writer. So we're talking about how is it, he's been writing a lot. Is that, you know, before he wasn't lucky enough to have it stretched through, but he still wants to bring Bophelo ke Semphego back. And when he does, obviously we are grannies and whatever. It just depends how we can do it.
How
but
you can spin it.
And yeah, sometimes some things depending, as we were talking before about, we don't want, it mustn't sound like creative burnout.
Correct.
If it can still be relevant and we can do it nicely, because people
bring
still
it
like
back.
it. Yes, we can bring it back.
Wow.
But it mustn't look like, oh, people are hanging on to the past. We're not hanging on to the past. But, you know, like you were saying, we want to see if we bring it back, if how did you, you know, like your Dallases and in TV when you used to watch Bo Sue Ellen and Dallas, and when it comes back, it can still be interesting.
It can definitely be interesting. I'll definitely be the first to watch. Thank you so much for joining us, Advocate. We really, really do appreciate your insights on this very, very important topic.
Mamolao, thank you so much. I'm sure next time we might be able to do other things. I'm so impressed with the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
And what you're doing, you know, with the public in for them knowing more about the law, and so that, you know, people shouldn't think law is something that they can't reach and deal with. And so for that, I'm really proud of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
So guys, this was all that we had for you today. I really hope you learned something. Send this video to your creative friends. We are still on TikTok and Instagram at The Real Mamolao. Remember to watch us on YouTube and make sure that you share, like, and subscribe. And that is all we have for you today. Until next time, goodbye.